technologies, startups, and mental models of successful people so that you too can take advantage of the opportunities that are open to us in the new digital world. The tagline for this show is "Everything significant happens at the fringe." And I borrowed that from Mark Andreessen, a famous venture capitalist and entrepreneur. And he believes that everything, like people, cool ideas, interesting people, everything that's worth paying attention to happens at the fringe. And then slowly but surely, it kind of sips into the mainstream. This is, by the way, a live show, and please allow Facebook and StreamYard to identify you so that I can see you in the comments. And please make sure that you make comments, ask questions as we go along, and I will make sure that I actually am looking at you as I go along. Let me talk a little bit about myself. Well, I'm an Australian. I'm an Australian academic, and I'm of Russian background. I'm a business professor right now at the American University in Dubai. I'm also a researcher and author. I've published a couple of books, and I've been an academic advisor to quite a few blockchain-based startups. As many people, I wear many hats, and I'm also a mom, a wife, and a daughter. As this is my very first show, I was obviously thinking really hard about the opening topic. And just a couple of weeks ago, we were at a large international conference here in Dubai on artificial intelligence and blockchain. And there, a lot of people, and it was a very big conference, over 2,000 people, they were really hugging each other, kissing, saying hello, and there was an atmosphere of excitement. People were thinking about some extreme and very interesting ideas, and speaking from the podium as well. And all of a sudden, it occurred to me, hey, well, this is how I should really name this show. It's living in the future now, because these people who I met and people who I know from the past, they are probably 5 to 6 years ahead of the curve, and they're very busy, building a new world. I can see a lot of my friends are here. Larissa's here, MJ, Tracy. Thank you so much, and thank you for supporting me today. So today I decided to talk about 3 things. 2 of them are exciting technologies, and another one is just a futuristic idea. All of them are futuristic things. One is blockchain and cryptocurrencies. The other one is life extension and age reversal. And the third one is startup cities and nations. And before we go any further, I've got a disclaimer to make. None of that, what you hear today, constitutes financial advice or health advice. All I'm doing, I'm simply sharing with you things that I'm excited about. But you please do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Starting with the blockchain and cryptocurrencies, whenever we think about the topic, we're always in kind of this industry, people who know each other, we always ask ourselves, how did you get into crypto? And so this is my personal story, how I got into crypto. It was probably around 2016. I was doing research into fintech and financial technologies and their impact on the traditional financial banking system here in the Middle East. And by the way, we're just trying to establish whether fintech was disruptive for the traditional services. And the answer, by the way, is not, and it's not really all that disruptive. But in the meantime, as we were interviewing senior executives, what they kept telling us, well, blockchain, Bitcoin, we kept hearing it. And Bitcoin, I was a bit familiar with it, but what was blockchain, I was really not very sure. So I decided to start educating myself. And then I was at a really big industry conference in Abu Dhabi on blockchain, and they people were talking about interesting things. Half of that I didn't understand at the time at all. And even then, well, less so now, but then there were definitely not that many experts in the area of blockchain. And so one thing led to another. Somewhere early 2017, we organized a meetup here in Dubai for people who were interested in crypto. And I very, very vividly remember the very first meeting when there was only a handful of us, maybe 10 people or so. And then as interest increased, as we started advertising these meetups, eventually it became a really large event. And we started to run these events every second week, sometimes every week. And so we grew our community to about 7,000 people at the peak of the time. So that's how I got into crypto, and very, very quickly I became also an academic advisor to a couple of startups, including Planet Blockchain. And it always intrigues me why so few people know or are involved in Bitcoin or blockchain and cryptocurrency, generally speaking. When I looked at some of the numbers at this particular conference that I mentioned to you, well, it was that they quoted something like 1% of the global population probably has a wallet. And maybe it's a little bit off figure, but even if you say it's 2% or 3%, I don't think we're there yet. So I feel very much at ease with the people like the ones that I met at the conference, that we had at our events, because startups were pitching their ideas, they're discussing what they're going to build. Some of the ideas were brilliant, others were probably a little bit too ahead of their time, others were not so good. So it was like the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I really felt at home with these people who were not just after the bottom line, but they wanted to change the world. They wanted to make it a better place. They were inspiring people. So many of you, or most of you, probably would have heard about Bitcoin, and not many maybe how blockchain works or what it does. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today, because there will be plenty of other opportunities in this show to talk about blockchain and how it works, why is it so important. But I want to draw your attention to something else that's going on, and that's called DeFi. DeFi stands for decentralized finance. And even there are probably few people who would have heard or dabbled into Bitcoin or trading with Bitcoin. Not many people have heard about decentralized finance. And do we really understand what's going on there? What's going on there is that a parallel financial system is being built. And it's being built on Ethereum. It's the second largest blockchain. Not just on Ethereum, but Ethereum is probably the largest financial platform for this type of services. And it's really fascinating. Let me give you recently came across a paper, and this paper is coming from a very reputable academic institution, and one of the authors is part of NBER, National Bureau of Economic Research. And this is what they're saying in their conclusion about decentralized finance, that it's a really proper, very thorough study of it. The true potential of DeFi is transformational. Assuming DeFi realizes its potential, the firms that refuse to adapt will be lost and forgotten. All traditional finance firms can and should begin to integrate their services with crypto and DeFi as the regulatory environment gains clarity over time. And then this paper with this line, which I like a lot, and this is why we should be paying attention to it. Ultimately, we see DeFi as the greatest opportunity of the coming decade and look forward to the reinvention of finance as we know it. MJ, that probably will speak to you because you're in the finance area. But that's even not the most exciting. It's probably relatively big, DeFi, but that's not the most exciting thing, what's going on in crypto and in blockchain. The most exciting thing is the so-called NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. Some people call them NFTs. Well, what it is, it's that you're able to create all of a sudden a token, a digital certificate for unique things that both physical, some of them are physical, but some of them are digital things. And anything really can be tokenized this way. One of the most interesting events that we were paying attention to was about 2 weeks ago, oh, not 2 weeks, but 2 months ago, when Beeple, a crypto artist, sold his totally digital work at Christie's for almost $70 million. He became the third highest paid artist in the world today because of that sale. And he's doing many, many other things, of course. And all Nifties can truly unleash human creativity and the potential on a level that we have not seen before. It was just simply was not possible. Even you and me, maybe at some point in time when we have a big community, we can tokenize this community, not with non-fungible tokens, but with simple tokens. And we can go from there, reward those people who are contributing, our community members. What I'm talking about here, and there will be an opportunity to talk about that a lot in this show, because that's a topic that I'm truly passionate about, is all of these things are exponential assets. We have never seen anything like that before. We're not talking of returns which are 2x, 3x, 4x. Let me give you just an example. I'm following a couple of projects. One of them is Sora, and Sora is not a very old project. It's related to the Polkadot ecosystem, and the returns to the stockholders, shareholders, investors, so to speak, has been 45,000% so far. Another project that I'm focusing on and I'm following, and I'm actually an investor in as well, it's Polygon and Matic, or Matic is a ticker for Polygon. It's a young project, and they were only established at the end of 2019, and by today they've returned to their shareholders or investors 58,000%. So we're not talking about anything which is very common in this world. And I hope I got you intrigued a little bit. Now, let's get on to the second technology. And the second technology that I would like to talk about is life extension and age reversal. And I'm not a deep expert in this, but hopefully in this show, I will invite people who are. I've simply got interested in age reversal and life extension because at some point in your life, you get to a point of your life, of your third age, when you start getting interested in those things. And I bet all of us have heard this refrain, well, aging is a natural process and there's nothing you can do about it. You can gracefully age. Well, it's nonsense. It's all wrong. But we keep hearing this time and time again. About a few months ago, when I started to be interested in the topic, I went on Reddit, on one of the subreddits that's specifically dedicated to life extension and age reversal, and asked this question: well, how many people do you think in the world understand what's going on that front? What kind of technologies are available? How can we get and take advantage of them? And the answer was 1% maybe of the entire global population. And that got me excited as well, because it's a similar story. Blockchain, life extension, it's not too many people are familiar with that. And it's interesting that the entrepreneurs, scientists, researchers, venture capitalists, philanthropists, they don't look at life extension and age reversal as something, as these two kind of things, something impossible, or they think they're quite inevitable as technologies. And one of those researchers is Dr. David Sinclair, who happens to be Australian, but he works at Harvard, at the Harvard lab. And he came up with a single reason why we age. And I can certainly direct you to his book that he wrote in 2019. It's called Lifespan: Why We Age and why we don't have to. If you told anyone 10 years ago even that age reversal is possible, they would have thought you kind of lost your marbles almost. But now it's quite acceptable view that yes, we can do it. And according to David Sinclair, aging is just loss of information. And information about aging can be digital and it can be analog. Digital information can be very easily copied, and that it's not a problem to actually multiply it. But with analog information, it gets lost very, very easily. And that's one of the reasons, or maybe one of the main reasons why we age and eventually, unfortunately, die. But there are a lot of exciting discoveries, and some of the most exciting discoveries are around the concept of longevity genes, genes that, control our aging process, make sure that we live longer and healthier. And it's not just a matter of prolonging our lifespan, it's being healthy for all the years that we have left on this planet. And some scientists actually believe that we don't have a limit to human life. We can live up to 200 years, like some mammals do. We can live to at least 120 years. That's what Dr. David Sinclair believes now. And there is, for example, a very interesting gene, which is called, or rather a series of genes that's called Clotho, and they improve brain skills, thinking, learning, memory, and that's regardless of age, of your sex or gender, or whether your parents got Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever. So, and it's interesting that these genes are activated in the time of psychological or biological stress as well. There are a couple of interesting technologies that are now available, and I want to talk a bit about them. One is senolytics, and senolytics are things that kill the so-called zombie cells. And zombie cells are those cells that accelerate cancer and cause inflammation. So mental aging and skin aging, that's probably going to be a thing of the past very, very soon. Stem cell therapy for AMD. AMD stands for age-related macular degeneration. Unfortunately, as we get older, many people, actually most of the people after the age of 50, that's the primary cause of their eyesight problems, primary cause of blindness. And we humans, unlike some animals, we lack this ability to regenerate our retina. And the question that some of the scientists posed, well, can we slow or halt all that aging of the retina? And we not only can we do it, can we slow it, but we can actually reverse it. And this is exactly what scientists proved on mice in clinical studies. And if we can do it, if that will be a really critical breakthrough in regenerative science, if we can do it in large-scale clinical settings. And very much related to that is human cell regeneration. The question here is, can your cells be programmed back to a useful state? And the answer is yes, they can be, and that's exactly what researchers at Stanford have recently done. And so diseases like osteoarthritis or muscle wasting might be a thing of the past, fortunately. Now, all of these technologies are super exciting. They're unfortunately 5 to 10 years away because they need to go through all these approval processes, but they're also very, very promising. But if you're my age, you may ask yourself a question, well, what can I do right now to help myself? And remember how we said that, longevity genes are activated by stressors. And this is exactly what we all can do. They are very low-tech solutions. However, they have been it has been confirmed in research, in serious medical research, that these three things help. And one of them is caloric restrictions and fasting. Again, this is not any sort of medical advice, but intermittent fasting and fast mimicking diets tend to have a very good effect on longevity genes, triggering these genes. It really works. It's not that difficult. I've tried it several times, and it does work. High intensity training, interval training, and resistance training are the things that you can try. Being 10 to 15 minutes out of breath every day is probably a good thing for you. And finally, hot and cold temperatures. Science is not really well decided here whether it's hot temperatures that are better or cold, but cold temperature does seem to work, and so does hot. There are studies of Finnish men who use sauna a lot, and they seem to not to suffer from heart attacks or heart diseases because of that. That was a large-scale study that they did. Interestingly enough, and that's something that we all should be paying attention to, some of these genes are activated by wasabi, believe it or not. So probably we all need to go to all these Japanese restaurants and eat sushi on a more regular basis. So that's a second technology that I wanted to talk about. The third one is more of a futuristic idea. It's not a technology per se, although it does use blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And that's the idea of startup cities and countries. A couple of years ago, through my involvement in all this blockchain community, I met someone very interesting. His name is Vít Jedlička. He's a Czech politician. He's also a publicist and activist. He also happens to be the president of the Free Republic of Liberland. It's a sovereign state. It's located somewhere. It's a tiny state, microstate, located between Croatia and Serbia. And it's on the bank of Danube River. And let me just take you to their website, because I think it's very, very revealing. It's what they say about Liberland, about their values, and about what it is all about. Liberland is a constitutional republic with elements of direct democracy. The state has 2 vice presidents and 5 ministers. The language is English. The Liberland merit is the currency of Liberland, and merit is a cryptocurrency based on Bitcoin Cash. The country's motto is to live and let live. Respect for individual and economic freedom and limited power given to the government. I think this is quite progressive. And apart from that, there are many, many initiatives of that sort that are going around the world. One of them is, another one is Prospera. And Prospera is an island near Honduras. And this is again from their perspectives, what they say about their world, why Prospera, what they're trying to do. Centuries of utopian communes, micronations, as Sin says, have dreamed of rebuilding society from first principles, free from entrenched interests and the debris of the past. If you got all the laws and values just right, maybe you can prevent poverty and corruption from finding their first footholds. And as we know, Honduras is quite high on the corruption index, but these guys are trying to build something very new, the future. It's very sustainable. I looked at some pictures, they're trying to make it as sustainable as possible. And they're expecting not just their Honduran professionals, and they're mainly targeting people who are doing remote work, but also expatriates who want maybe a piece of tropical paradise as well. These developments, and they're just a couple of them, are super exciting, but I think what's even a more interesting idea here, because these ideas are based on physical territory, physical land, the idea of starting a country or a city cloud first. And there is a thought leader that I tend to follow. His name is Balaji Srinivasan. He's an entrepreneur, venture capitalist, and now angel investor. He invests in many blockchain startups, also longevity startups as well. he came up with this idea of a network state, and the network state, according to him, it's just his words, I don't want to paraphrase. I define a network state as a social network with an integrated cryptocurrency and a sense of national consciousness that eventually crowdfunds territory. So his roadmap is, well, he's saying build a community in the cloud first, then organize this community around remote work, enforce laws via smart contracts. That's where blockchain comes in. Practice in-person norms of civility, simulate rather architecture in VR, in virtual reality, and then and only then crowdfund territory and materialize that city into the real world. And it doesn't have to be just one place. It can be a multitude of places because it's all decentralized and dispersed and distributed all over the world. It can be a cul-de-sac here, it can be a city here, it can be maybe an apartment or a flat somewhere else. So we don't have to be in the same physical place. We just can be like-minded people with the same values and the same principles. So I hope I've intrigued you enough so far. I suggest you start paying attention to the fringe, to all these things, that ideas that have less than, say, 1% adoption rate globally. And that's important for your career, for your personal development, but also for wealth creation opportunities. And hopefully in this fringe show, we will discover these interesting opportunities and have a chance to meet very visionary and interesting people. Well, thank you for joining. I'll just quickly skip through a couple of comments here. There's no limit. Yes, fascinating. New Age, interesting about Honduras. Yes, but that's not the only place. There are lots of other things that are going to happen around the world. Those microstates. And if you want to look at one progressive state, it actually exists already in the US. It's Florida, and Miami's mayor is particularly progressive individual. He's thinking big, and he's not your usual thinker. And I think interesting things will happen in Miami, as Silicon Valley will be relocated there too. Well, thank you for joining, guys. Again, thank you for joining. I shall see you on the Fringe again next Friday at 2 p.m. Dubai time.